And so the story goes, we read the prose, we sussed the things that made it seem probable. But now we come to the Bewlay brothers, and here is the moment I was dreading. With every record I analyzed so far, I had a pretty good idea beforehand where I was going with it, although once I started, I was always surprised by where the analysis took me. With the Bewlay brothers, I haven't a clue what it's all about. As I write these words, I'm getting prepared to dive into it, and I have no idea what I'll come up with. In such situations, there's only one thing to do. Take the plunge. One thing that seems obvious is that this record is meant to be elusive. To begin with, the style is quite different from Bowie's other records of that period. In those other records, you can always find the main narrative of themes it revolves around. Here, the picture is muddled by fancy words, enigmatic imagery, and wordplays, and it is very hard to extract a story from it. The Dylanesque poetry slithers in unexpected directions, and Mick Ronson's wonderful electric guitar takes us through many moods, its beauty contrasting with the nauseating acoustic guitar strumming. Some have postulated that this record has no meaning at all, that Bowie is simply making fun of those who take him too seriously, providing them with an impenetrable lyric to bash their heads against. But that doesn't compute with the way Bowie treated this record over the years. It seems to mean something very deep and personal to him, and that seems to be the reason for the masquerade. This makes the role of the interpreter particularly hard, but we can still try. A quick first glance at the lyrics reveals that they contain many images that bring to mind the themes he was dealing with in other records from that period, like religion, insanity, drug use, homosexuality, transvestitism, and glamour. It is tempting to see the Bewlay brothers as a couple of hustlers who go through all sorts of adventures together. But I believe that this is just the outer shell imagery, and the things that we should focus on are the identity of the brothers and the relationship between them. Many years later, Bowie revealed that he took the name Bewlay from a brand of pipes of that name, and that it actually stands for Bowie. This certainly clears the smoke a little. Let us think of the record as the Bowie brothers. Next we should ask, who are the Bowie brothers? The easy answer would be to suggest that he is talking about himself and his mentally ill half-brother Terry, and many, indeed, regard the record as a tribute to Terry Jones, expressing the soulful connection between the two. This would account for the personal feel of it, and there are images in the record that support this interpretation. But I am not going to go in that direction. One thing seems apparent. These guys are together through everything. In the feeble, in the bad, in the devil may be here, in the blessed and cold, etc. Which would suggest that the two brothers aren't two persons, but two sides of Bowie's own personality. This would correspond with the other bookend of Hunky Dory. In Changes, Bowie tells us that when he tried self-reflection, it produced a duality in his being. The myself was facing the me. And we have encountered this duality elsewhere in his work, most notably in Width of a Circle. But what is the nature of this duality? Are there two distinct persons, living in the same body? No, not unless you suffer from multiple personality disorder. In a regular case, this duality would mean that your identity can never encompass all parts of your being. If you define yourself in a certain way, there will always be parts of you that will be left out of this definition, and they will become the other side of your personality. And since Changes defined identity as a fluid thing, this duality must also be fluid. One moment you think of yourself in a certain way, and it splits your being accordingly, and the next moment you think of yourself in another way, and your being is then split differently. This fluid duality, I feel, is what we find in the Bewlay brothers. There are no two distinct personalities throughout the record, but rather a process of splitting, operating within the resulting duality, and then splitting in a different way. This fluidity is one of the things that make the record so hard to grab onto. Now we have a certain picture in mind, of a fluid process of splitting and resplitting. Armed with this picture, let us proceed to dissect the record.
And so the story goes, they wore the clothes, they said the things to make it seem improbable. The wail of a lie like the hope it was.
This portrays people who were put on a spectacle, a fancy lie which they knew was false, but made it so seductive in its improbability that other people fell for it. But who are they? Hard to tell, but judging by his other records of the period, I'm led to think that he's talking about the counterculture again. The 60s youth wore fancy clothes to distinguish themselves from the adults, and pretended that they were going to create a new world, but it was all just a fabulous lie.
And the good men tomorrow had their feet in the wallow, and their heads abroad were nicer shorn, and how they bought their positions with saccharine and trust.
Of course, not all the youth were members of the counterculture. The good men of tomorrow are those kids who conform to society's norms, comfortable to stand in the wallow of mediocrity, to not think too much, to comb their hair according to the rules, to use false sweetness to win the trust of employers and advance in society. They are the opposite of those in the opening passage. So we have two sides here, and if we go by our reading, we would say that there are two sides in Bowie's personality as well. He also has a rebellious side and the side that wants to conform. He sees parts of himself in both groups.
And the world was asleep to our latent fuss. Sang the swirl through the streets like the crust of the sun.
But apparently, he didn't feel he belonged to any of the groups. There was a part in him that wanted something else, which was not provided by them. It remained latent, fussing under the surface, but not reaching the ears of the world. He was showing a false exterior to the world, an exterior that was like the crust of the sun, that is, something that can hardly contain the inner burn.
In our wings that bark, flashing teeth of brass, standing tall in the dark. Oh, and we were gone, hanging out with your 12 men. We were so turned on by your lack of conclusions.
Finally, he found a way to express the latent fuss, to create his own identity. Seems that here he recalls breaking away from these two groups, both conformed society and the counterculture, and establishing himself as David Bowie, which of course immediately split his personality differently, producing the Bewlay brothers. The following images are vague, but they seem to represent a certain attitude, standing alone in the face of the world and making noise to rattle it. He dropped out of society and went hanging out with its dwarfmen, with the castaways. It suggests that he joined the carny, and that brings to mind his decision to become the clown, the Pierrot that plays mirror image to humanity. In that capacity, society's lack of conclusions, its inability to find any lasting truths, did not depress him but rather turned him on. It gave him room for artistic expression.
I was stolen, he was waxed, so he could scream and still relax. Unbelievable. And we frightened the small children away.
The nature of the new split revolves around animation versus inanimation. One side is stable and solid, like a stone, while the other side is flexible and changing, like wax. He identified himself with the solid side, while the flexible side was reserved for his characters. The way I understand these lines, Bowie is talking about the aesthetic position he took in the years 67 to 71, when his self stood apart from society as a songwriter, while the characters in his songs were the ones who dove into the stream of everyday life, putting on faces and frightening the children.
And our talk was old and dust would flow through our veins, and lo, it was midnight back at the kitchen door, like the grim face on the cathedral floor.
But then he felt that this position was making him gather dust. The image of dust flowing through his veins invokes drug use, and is probably meant to do so, but I feel the main meaning is something else. I think it is another comment on the passage of time, of the feeling that his time is running wild and that he is wasting his life away, instead of living it like it should be lived. The stroke of midnight reminds him that he is constantly moving towards death. That's the grim face on the cathedral floor, and that he should find a way to utilize his life better.
The solid book we wrote cannot be found today.
This sounds like a direct reference to Oh You Pretty Things, where he is telling us that the books he writes today will be found by the Golden Ones, the race of superhumanoids of the future, and only they will be able to understand it. Bowie seems to be saying that the albums he made so far present a solid worldview, but they cannot be understood by his contemporaries. He needs to find a way to connect better.
It was stalking time for the Moon Boys, the Bewlay brothers.
Here the other brother takes over, that brother that is about action and change. From his point of view, the kind of art they have been producing until now is nothing but stalking, spying on the actions of humankind without taking part.
With our backs on the arch, and if the devil may be here, then he can sing about that.
For this other brother, the scenery of midnight in the cathedral, with the sense of impending death and the devil close at hand, is not frightening but rather presents options. But he knows that his brother cannot sing about such things, cannot take these options, and that's why he took over. Bowie might be hinting at his Crowleyan stage, when he opened up to the darkness.
Oh, and we were gone, real cool traders. We were so turned on, you thought we were bacon.
And so he moved on from being a clown to being a dark mystic, trading one lifestyle for another. The other brother, the one who believes in stability, felt that they were being fakers for changing so dramatically. But this brother holds the belief expressed in changes, that the self is always a faker. There is no such thing as a real self. Therefore, realness should be defined differently. You are real when you follow the thing that turns you on at the moment, and change yourself accordingly.
And now the dress is hung, the ticket pawned, the Factomax that proved the fact is melted down, woven on the edging of my pillow.
Until now, he was talking in past tense. Here he talks about the present. It seems that the other brother, the one who is more stable, is back in the driver's seat. And from his point of view, that period when the other side was in control was nothing but an act. Well, this act is now over. He has removed the dress and makeup, and the Max Factor stains on his pillow suggest that it was nothing but a dream.
And my brother lays upon the rocks, he could be dead, he could be not, he could be you. He's chameleon, comedian, Corinthian, and caricature. Shooting up high in the sky, Bewlay brothers. In the feeble, in the bad, Bewlay brothers.
The other brother, he tells us, is dormant for the moment, but he knows that he might wake up. He describes that other side as chameleon, denoting his flexible, changing nature, comedian, denoting his Pierrot nature, Corinthian, probably denoting his evangelic nature, in bringing to mind St. Paul's epistles, and caricature. Again, it has to do with the Pierrot, who caricaturizes human nature. This is why he could be you, that is, any one of us. That other side is also shooting up high in the sky, filling their combined being with dreams of a better existence, while the more stable side sees no escape from the feeble and the bad.
In the blessed and cold, in the clutch hungry dark, was where we played our mark. Oh, and we were gone, kings of oblivion. We were so turned on in the mind warp pavilion.
This passage hints that they were prostituting themselves to someone or something. But now they are gone again, setting out on another mind-warping adventure.
Lay me place and bake me pie, I'm starving for me gravy. Leave my shoes and door unlocked, I might just slip away. Hey, just for the day. Hey, please come away. Hey, just for the day.
Once again, he goes through a transformation. The brother that is in control now is the brother that enjoys change, shoots for pies in the sky, and wants to ride the gravy train. He is calling for the other brother to join him, to come away on the new adventure. But there is also a new awareness. This is going to be temporary. The phrase "just for a day," which will play a crucial role in Bowie's art, makes its first appearance here. He knows that this new transformation is only a phase, and the day will come when another side of him will take over and have a different view of things. So the Bewlay brothers, in my analysis, tells the story of the transformations Bowie the artist went through, ending in the here and now. Moreover, it shows him getting ready to make another change. He is now ready to put on the costume and makeup once again, because his journey made him realize that there is no stable truth, but rather the truth is found in the process of creating and recreating yourself. What you have to do is find something that turns you on, create a whale of a lie based on it, and then you'll be gone, on a wondrous adventure. But you also have to remember that it is only temporary, and the lie will eventually blow up. Therefore, you have to stay connected to that other side of your being, the other brother, and occasionally check up things from his perspective, to see if the lie still holds, or if it is time to move on. With this realization, Bowie slips away from the passive songwriter stance, and enters a new phase of his career.
Please come away.